Okizeme in old fighting games, or in most fighting games, I should say, come down to high-low throw. And what I mean by highs are overheads, moves that can only be blocked high. So in Third Strike in particular, Universal Overhead exists to give everyone access to one of these types of moves. We have moves that are lows, like Ken's crouching medium kick. They can only be block low. And then we have throw. It's important to understand why throws are so fundamental in fighting games. So throws open everything up. Without throws, there's no reason to not block. In most fighting games, outside of overheads, all other moves are low blockable. In Third Strike is no exception. In Third Strike, between 85 and 90% of all moves in this game are low blockable. So if you want to open your opponent up, it has to be done through overheads, or throws, or through conditioning. So when dealing with your opponent, and you're throwing them, etc., in older games, you are required to stand up to tech a throw. Or I shouldn't even just say in older games, but in most fighting games in general. You cannot tech a throw from crouching. However, in Third Strike, you can be crouching, and as a reaction, while holding down back, you can press throw. This is called a crouch tech. This also existed for a short period in Street Fighter V. However, because there is no parry in Street Fighter V, opening up your opponent is very, very difficult if they don't ever have to leave down back. To my knowledge, not a whole lot of characters have overheads in that game that can lead to substantial damage or actually force ways to open your opponent up. So if you can react to everything without leaving crouch block, there's no reason to ever stand up. However, in older games, if you were to throw your opponent and they need to stand up, your lows become more prominent, right? So in ST, in CVS2, etc., sweeps, low moves that can combo into whatever, in Third Strike, Ken's crouching medium kick DP is a perfect example of getting a lot of damage off of a single low. But because of crouch tech, throws become a little bit less effective at the base level. So because the vast majority of all the moves in this game, like 85 to 90%, are low blockable, you have to understand one of the most prevalent issues. And that is that a vast majority of all of those in the game have very little reward outside of specific situations. Now, what do I mean by this? There are very specific characters in this game that get extreme reward off of lows, especially with no meter. So we're going to use Alex as an example of characters that get very little off of their lows. So as we can see here, Alex can do crouching light kick into slash, but it doesn't combo. Neither does the medium punch one. It doesn't combo into anything else outside of a target combo into crouching medium kick. It's a 17 frame or 17 damage target combo, which pushes him back into neutral. So this means that it's the perfect distance for a jump. It's also basically the max distance for his sweep. Sweep is his other option. However, it is very reactable on its own. So against Alex, you don't really have any reason not to block low. He does have standing heavy punch, but again, this is something that's technically reactable. It's hard to, but it's possible. And then he has universal overhead and forward medium punch. However, I'm pretty sure that forward medium punch can be low blockable. Yep. So when thinking about Alex, he doesn't really get a whole lot off of lows, normally. However, because he's a command throw character, he gets quite a bit off of tick throws. And crouching light kick is, one of his better moves. and it leaves him in perfect position for tick throws. It also leaves him in perfect position to, go high again with standing medium kick as a pressure tool. So a majority of the characters use their lows in this game as pokes or pressure tools in order to create different situations, frame traps, etc. However, the stronger characters in the game can get quite a bit more off of their lows. So Ken is considered one of the strongest characters, and one of the reasons for that is because of the effectiveness of his lows. If he doesn't want to use meter, he has the ability to cancel into specials. Although neither Fireball or Tatsumaki are very strong, crouching medium kick DP does 59 damage without using any meter. He can use EX Fireball as a half meter usage to get around 30 damage and get a knockdown. Force the exact same Okizeme situation again. He can use crouching short super, and he can use crouching medium kick super. So one of his strengths is his ability to open his opponent up with lows, which Alex doesn't really have. Other characters also make very useful, or make great use of their lows. Dudley is a special kind of beast. And the reason for that is this overhead. It's about 3 frames faster than every other overhead in the game. And it combos into super. With no meter, it puts you in a situation where you actually are very hard to punish, even on block. So his highs are very strong, or his overheads are very strong, I should say. He can confirm into super off of universal overhead as well, just like Ken and a bunch of other characters. So his lows are the reason why he's such a beast on Oki, is because without meter, he gets target combo, which pushes you back to neutral. It's extremely hard to punish on block, and it does 26 damage, which is quite a bit. Or at least it does 26 against Ryu. He has a sweep with crouching medium kick, which gives you a knockdown. He also has a juggle state sweep, which is very hard to punish on block for a majority of the cast. So Dudley is extremely strong in Oki situations because he makes you not only respect throw, but he makes you fully respect his highs and his lows, whether he has meter or not. Finding out how you can use lows to your advantage is important. And finding out how you can open your opponent up with your highs is just as important. Goki's forward medium punch being throw immune, but his lows not being that strong. Because crouching short doesn't really combo into anything outside of super. Crouching medium kick, if your opponent is not standing up, will whiff Tatsu from far away. However, heavy kick Tatsu up close and medium kick Tatsu up close can actually hit your opponent, but they require you to be able to hit confirm your crouching medium kick. If you can't do that, then you put yourself at a very high risk, because those moves are all punishable, whether they're on whiff or on block. Certain characters can punish them harder than others. So understanding matchups and stuff is another aspect of things. So the first thing you have to understand is when your opponent can be thrown. As you can see here, I did crouching light kick and it hit my opponent, and then I immediately did Kara throw. And I was not able to throw them. However, if I delay very slightly, they become throwable. So there are a few situations in this game where you cannot be thrown by your opponent. The situations are when you get knocked down, when you block or get hit by a move, whether it's a jump in or a ground move or whatever, it doesn't matter. You have 6 frames of throw invulnerability. Or if you get reset. Right? He's immune to throw. But if I wait, it's the same thing off of jumps. If I wait, he's throw vulnerable. But if I do it as he's landing, he's not able to be thrown for 6 frames. Let's talk about block, right? Low block beats a majority of things in this game. So when you think about blocking and you're blocking low, the only thing that you're susceptible to is overheads. So you get knocked down, overhead comes. It loses. So this means that that has to be high blocked. But that leaves you open to low attacks. So characters that have very strong overheads are going to make it so that you're more susceptible to lows. It's just how the cookie crumbles. But if their overheads aren't very strong, like if they only have, universal overhead, or they may not have meter or whatever, just blocking low is probably the best choice. However, blocks obviously lose to throws. And they beat both mid attacks and low attacks. When you block, right? Very simple. So now throws. Now, certain moves in this game actually have throw invulnerability. So if I try to throw Akuma or Goki when he's doing his forward medium punch, it's not throwable. So it's a good choice. However, if I were to do this against a melee attack, it will lose, whether it's a high or a low. Now, if I am to throw when my opponent does this, it techs to throw. And depending on if I'm the person that throws first, or if I'm the person that is the one teching, you'll get different pushback. So as you can see here, Goki is now under where the wins would be. Oops. And I missed my low tech. And as you can see here, I'm the one that tech now, and Goki's all the way behind the timer. So depending on if you tech them or if they tech you, depends on how advantageous that throw situation is for them. So even though throw technically trades with throw, depends on if you're the person that gets the tech or if you're the person that actually is the one forcing them to tech your throw. So now what about wake up attack? Obviously, if we get thrown and we try to wake up with an attack, it's not going to work. Now normally, if you wake up and you try to press, standing fierce punch, like I just tried there, it's not going to work. However, there are moves that are fast enough that can beat melee throw. And if you mistime it, as I did with the standing medium punch there, you'll get thrown. However, if you time it correctly, it'll beat the throw. So this means that any move that is active on frame 6, meaning that you're using all 6 throw invulnerability frames, and done frame perfectly will work. Anything that is active before frame 6 will have extra frames of leniency. So Chun's down jab is very important for this. And it's also why it's so strong for people to do that on their wake up, because it effectively neutralizes throws. The opponent can't throw you because your down jab comes out in 3 frames, so you have 3 frames of leniency. However, it is susceptible to parry, which we'll go over later. So one thing that you have to understand before even talking about guard jump is why jump is important. And that's jump beats throws. However, it loses to meaties. So if your opponent is throw happy, you'll see a lot of players just jump out of the corner. And the reason why this works is because you are throw invulnerable after the first frame of your jump. So as soon as you start to jump, your opponent can't do anything. So when you have that 6 frame of invulnerability, and then you jump after the fact, even if they meaty throw you, it's not going to work. So guard jump is super important. While it is an advanced tactic, it fundamentally shapes the entirety of rock, paper, scissors, and Third Strike. And the reason for that is because without going into the second layer of decisions, at the basic level, it beats every basic option. It beats throws, and it beats meaties that don't actually hit you overhead. So how it's done is doing down back, up back, down back, or down back, up forward, down back. The goal is to jump a throw, or to block a meaty. So I jump the throw. I blocked the normal, which it shouldn't have been a high block, which means I fucked it up. There we go. So as you can see here, I blocked the meaty and I jumped the throw with the same option select. So this is where I need to reiterate. There is no never and there is no always in Third Strike. If you lean on this one defensive mechanic as, hey, this beats 66% of my opponent's options, I need to do this. That's not true. It actually introduces another aspect to the offensive choices that your opponent has. And that's delayed attacks. Alright, so when you are defending against your opponent, you will jump a throw. You will block a meaty. You'll get hit if you do the guard jump wrong. And if he delays it enough, he'll hit you out of the start of your jump. Okay. So what happens if he does it properly? Like at the actual first frame that you're trying to jump. Certain characters will hit you out of pre-jump frames. So this is one of the reasons why Ken's standing medium punch fierce punch is so strong. Because it beats guard jump. It's not because it simply can be confirmed into dragon punch or into super, but because it beats guard jump. Without guard jump, there's no reason to do medium punch fierce punch because it's low blockable, right? Or there's very little reason to. So until guard jump gets introduced as a choice, or until your opponent somehow decides that they want to parry, that target combo doesn't work. So this is where it goes back to there is no always and there is no never. While it does beat quite a bit of options, especially at the basic level, once they introduce delays in their attacks, it can lose. And lose its effectiveness. But it's extremely important against characters that have command throws, such as Alex, Twins, Hugo, especially ones with longer command throws, like Alex, Twins, and Makoto. Because you actually need to be able to jump those. And in some cases, you can punish them when you do jump them. So, if you get hit by delayed attacks, and you are in a situation where your opponent likes to stop your guard jumps with delayed attacks, you can start doing wake-up buttons. As long as your button is fast enough, just like if you're contesting throws, it'll work perfectly. So that's it for the first part. And now we're going to go into phase 2, which is advanced RPS, or what people might call yomi layer 2. So Quickstand. It's something that's often overlooked as a way of changing your opponent's choices. So let's take a look at a set play that Yun does against Makoto. So this would normally combo, I just messed up by a frame. But the goal here is that Yun wants to do cross-up dive kick. With super jump forward, medium kick, dive kick. He can't do the super jump forward, medium kick, dive kick unless he reverses it. So he has to react that you're not quick rising to get the dive kick, and then he's really far away. So he has to get back up, or he has to continue to build meter or do whatever. So it changes Yun's choices. And this exists for other characters in other situations as well. So it's applicable to a vast majority of knockdowns. There are going to be knockdowns that it doesn't really matter, where the quick rise itself, getting up faster, is better or worse. But for the most part, it can be used as a change of tempo or a change of pace in the match so that your opponent must make different decisions. So every character's quick rise is different and can force different situations. Every character's weight is also different and can force different situations. So here's an example against Yun versus Hugo. There's two different ways that a character can be knocked down. They can be thrown as an example, or knocked away from you where their head is towards the corner. Or they can be knocked down where their head is towards you. So when I knock him down and he doesn't quick rise, I stay in front. And if he quick rises, I can walk through him. I can also stop walking at any point to stay in front. So there's a lot that Hugo has to guess here. So if you always quick rise, then you always give this option to Yun, and it makes this situation a lot more dangerous. But if you don't quick rise, you're basically giving a guaranteed timing at which they can choose to do their choices. So changing when you quick rise and when you don't can have an adverse effect on how your opponent is able to properly do their Okizeme against you, or play a rock, paper, scissors. So another thing that you have to understand is that because quick rise moves you farther away, it can push you towards the corner faster. If he were to have not quick rise for either of those dash punches, oops, he's not cornered. He's a little bit outside. So just those little things, just one quick rise would have forced him into the corner. So mid-screen, changing when you quick rise and when you don't can be a positional thing. It can stop set play, and it can change tempo. And in the corner, it's mostly just to change tempo at the risk of some characters being able to be walked over or dashed over, etc. So it's a risk-reward thing depending on the matchup and player knowledge and how they like to actually go about doing things. So if they're doing particular things that are very strong against quick rise, then you can stop quick rising. And vice versa. So the strongest thing, or an example of this, is Kuni. Kuni is the king of understanding and abusing quick rise situations from his opponent. When they don't quick rise, he has to change when he does his fireball. So they're forced to block it. As you see, I fucked it up. And I screwed it up again. And if you do it too early, that's what happens. So being able to change to make sure that you get your proper set play, regardless of if they quick rise or not, is a skill that you have to learn. And not every character has setups that require you to be able to react to this, because a lot of Okizeme is, if you whiff a button, okay, you still have the extra amount of time that they aren't quick rising. We go back to the Hugo example. You know, Hugo off of a throw in the corner against Yun is 107 frames if he does a quick rise. And if he doesn't quick rise, it's 125 frames. So it gives you the opportunity to do another choice if you've already whiffed your buttons. So if your goal is to like whiff crouching medium punch, and then make a decision, you know, or 3 crouching medium punches and then make a decision, the 3rd crouching medium punch, if he quick rises, hits him. And if not, you get 3 into a meaty. So, you know, being able to react to Hugo's ability to quick rise and then making a decision is important as well. So, forcing your opponent to change these decisions with your quick rise is just as important as their ability to react to it. And if there's no change in tempo, there's no change in making them make different decisions, then it's always going to be, or most likely going to be, in the person on offense's advantage, creating those situations over and over and over again. This section is going to cover parrying. It's going to be a lot more talking than gameplay, so I'm sorry about that. But there's a lot to cover, so just listen. So parrying is something that, you know, many players use as a guessing mechanic, and this is what some might consider the most offensive way to be defensive. And that's because the goal of parry is normally to counter your opponent's habits or their decisions and get as much damage as possible when you do so. Because the reward can be so high for many characters in the game, a lot of players have an over-reliance on this and guess parry when they wake up, because they feel like the reward is too high not to do so. But the main reason guessing is so bad in a lot of cases is because moves are parryable specifically high or low, like I showed with the crouching medium kick and the standing medium punch with Ryu. Crouching medium kick is only parryable low, and standing medium punch is only parryable high. So unlike having the ability to block most of the high attacks in the game with low block, you're forced to actually parry in the correct direction. Otherwise, you take damage. It makes every situation into a 50-50 if you decide to parry. You're flipping a coin if you're going to be successful or not. But without parry in the game, lows are a lot less useful because you don't have to stand tech throws. So because of parry, lows become a lot more useful. And because a vast majority of the game's moves can be parried high, the moves that do hit low become more useful regardless of how much actual reward you can get off of them. So their strength and usefulness increases because otherwise they can just counter all of your choices with a high parry instead of blocking, right? Which allows them to get quite a lot more off of their offensively defensive choice. And this is why when most people guess parry, they guess parry high, because it covers the highest percentage of every character's moveset. So if your opponent has the habit of stand taking throws, high parrying, or just blocking low, lows are strong because they can either cause damage, provide setups, or force pressure situations. Lows and highs can both be used as conditioning tools, with the main goal to influence your opponent's choices on defense. So mixing up your approach on offense is important, either simply to put other things in your opponent's mind, or as a reaction to past decisions that they have made. Now, mixing in highs and lows that can only be parried in their respective direction helps with that immensely. However, Sometimes using moves that are high and low parryable can be strong, such as Yun's crouching medium punch, as this move provides +5 if it's blocked. This allows Yun to continue pressure a lot more easy than it might be from other normals. Now, before discussing actually how parry reacts or intertwines with rock, paper, scissors, you have to understand something. Parrying and returning to actual neutral while you're on the ground gives you 10 frames of active parry. And if you parry and do anything else, it takes that window and shrinks it substantially. So if you parry and then block immediately afterward, you may only have 3 or 6 frames of parry. So about half, or a third. And this is where your actual parry can work against your opponent's attack. So if you tap and hold forward, you get 6 frames of parry window, which is something that people like to incorporate when trying to throw their opponents or check their opponent's throws as an option select of sorts. So let's take a look at how parry actually intersects with the normal rock, paper, scissors situations. So, meaties in general, when your opponents are right next to you, they have highs and they have lows. So it's a coin flip every time you are making a read on your opponent's habits or their next decision. It also matters if the character has strong options that can be canceled into afterward, which means that you have to commit to parry blocking, or you have to commit to parrying and making a decision. So if I were to play Ken right now and do crouching medium kick into super, if I were to parry the crouching medium kick and then do anything, the super would hit me. Right? So there are substantial risks to this. So when dealing with delayed attacks, you have to understand that it is a hard commitment to a parry. If you delay your parry and then parry block or whatever, you're going to substantially reduce the amount of frames that you get your parry. And if your goal is to counter a delayed attack, it's going to be from a hard commitment. So attacks that are specifically meant to beat guard jump, like this one, will either tag you out of the air or hit you during the pre-jump frames. Now, this is normally done between 2 and 5 frames after a normal meaty timing. So if you use the 6-frame window as a baseline and you parry in the middle of that, you can cover the extra frames afterward that would normally be for a delayed attack. But because you're returning to neutral, you're susceptible to other things. Now, when I get hit here, it's basically impossible to jump parry. You have to be off the ground for a specific amount of frames before a jump parry works. But jump parry is very important. One of the things about your opponent delaying their attack so much is that it's meant to deal with the guard jump or just a straight jump to begin with. So when thinking about if you want to make that decision, it has to be based on your opponent's tendencies. So when Ryu throws me, if he does a delayed standing heavy punch and I jump, it's going to hit me. But I can parry it just like I did there. But if I just hold up, it's going to hit me and reset me, and then it's going to be completely at Ryu's advantage. So guard jump can work out in your favor, or guard jump parry, I should say, which is a lot harder to do. Which, if I wasn't bad, that would have comboed. But you get the idea. Is that there are ways that you can deal with your opponent's choices and still get the better of them. Now, what about parrying versus a throw? Obviously, if you're parrying, you're staying grounded. So the throw is going to win, unless you option select. But the option select only exists if you're going to be parrying with the intent on throwing your opponent afterward no matter what. And this usually consists of a back throw. So when Ryu throws me, I do down and then I do back and delayed my throw. Now what this does is that it allows me to block highs, it allows me to tech, it allows my down parry. You can also do it as down, down, back, and then crouch tech, where you parry down. If it's a meaty, you get the parry, and if not, then you tech their throw. However, when you do that, obviously crouching light punch comes out. So there is a risk because it is high-low parryable, since every character's jab is high and low, technically, as far as parry goes. So you get far less out of any parry against a throw unless you commit to a throw automatically. So either you're tapping forward, holding it, and throwing, or you're tapping forward and then back throwing, or tapping down and then back throwing, etc. So parry can be used as a way to deal with your opponent when you're on offense as well. You know, many people like to contest with buttons or specials like DP or whatever. If you show them that they should be looking for throws or meaties very often. They can also simply be trying to hit you if you don't like to make very offensive-minded decisions like meaties. Because you're either going to be delaying your choices, making you more susceptible to buttons, or you're going to be doing delayed choices to try to beat guard jump or whatever it may be. However, using parries can blow this up, either with forward parries or down parries depending on the situation. And the most prominent one is if your opponent likes to use crouch tech. As I said before, remember, crouch tech is a down parry or a forward parry. So for my opponent, getting that one parry and hitting me with two things, they just did 57 damage. It's a lot. So when you're able to get the most damage as possible, or maximize your decisions off of these parries, you can make your opponent second guess crouch teching, or second guess pressing buttons in general, as the risk becomes much higher. And option selects on offense also exist, where you're allowed to, or encouraged to, put parries in before your decisions. So, risk reward on parries. Let's say Yun throws Urian. What is the risk reward for parrying, right? If he walks up and he starts whiffing buttons, you know, it's dangerous. You mess up your parry, you get hit. You know, you might be able to get that, right? But what happens if Yun actually does it properly? Either the first hit hits and that's it, or it whiffs completely. Now what happens if he does crouching medium kick, right? Again, same thing. And it's not just a mistiming thing, right? It's a spatial thing. So not only do you have to worry about where your opponent is, you have to worry about how much life they have, how much meter they have, and how much meter you have. To accurately come up with risk reward. Well, how is that effective? Or how is that affected by other things? Conditioning. Conditioning is a very important aspect of Third Strike. And it's imperative that you're able to read the conditioning of your opponent in order to deal with their choices. Now, let's say your opponent likes to do highs all the time. They're doing tick throws, they're doing this, they're doing delayed, you know, this to get guard jump, you know, deal with guard jump, etc., right? Do high parries become good? Sure. But what happens if they do this and a delay DP? Or if they do this and a delay DP? And then you parry, and then you get hit. Was that risk worth taking? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. So, if you know that your opponent varies things up between the three different things, it's purely a guess, right? It's never really a conditioning thing. But, you know, if your opponent is always going highs, and then you know eventually they're going to go low, when do you go for that low parry? Or do you just block? It comes down to your ability to read your opponent and adapt to their choices. And parries without the ability to see where and what your opponent wants to do based on life, meter, you know, if you're in the middle of the screen, if you're in the corner, etc. If you're not able to read those situations properly, or if you're not, you know, using option selects or whatever, doing parries may or may not make sense. It's a hell of a lot harder to open up your opponent if they're crouch blocking and you just keep trying to open them up with normals. Because the only way that you're going to open them up is with throws. You know, or back medium kick, or universal overhead, into super or whatever. So if you don't have all of these as part of your game, your opponent blocking is going to be a lot more detrimental for you to deal with than, you know, an opponent that just likes to guess all the time. Because an opponent that just guesses all the time is going to get hit by the highs, they're going to get hit by the lows, and then you're going to get damage. And that's what you're hoping for, especially at a mid-level, and especially as an online player. Online players and mid-level players in general, and even some high-level players, have the over-reliance on parry to get damage. They have the over-reliance on parry as a means of coming back into the situations. You know, I myself am guilty of this in a lot of times. And it's something that I'm actively trying to work on myself. But, you know, characters that have good risk-reward, like Ken, as an example, if your opponent, you know, does something, you do almost a third of their life for one good decision. You know, if it's mid-screen or whatever, and you get, you know, parry into back throw, into dash dash, your opponent's essentially cornered. One back throw from mid-screen corners your opponent. Depending on the situation, obviously. But you get the idea. Is that, you know, I get short super off of lows. I get medium punch, fierce punch, fireball super, or medium punch, fierce punch super. And I do about 33% of my opponent's life for all of this stuff. You know, I can get hard knockdowns, or not hard knockdowns, but I can get knockdowns off of EX Fireball. You know, Yuri in mid-screen can get crouching heavy punch into, you know, tackle unblockable, or headbutt unblockable, or EX headbutt unblockable, or whatever. There's a lot of high reward for the risk that you're taking. But if you can't deal with your opponent in other ways, it doesn't matter. If they're conditioning you to look for highs, and then they get you with that low when you go for the high parry, is that parry worth it? If they're conditioning you with throws to jump, and then you get hit by a delay target combo into whatever, is that guard jump worth it? Should you have parried? You know, no one can answer that question for you, and it's always going to be a personal decision. But understanding that conditioning plays a big role in when and how you should parry, and having the adaptations to your opponent's decisions dictate those choices, is the difference between the highest level players and just good players. The best players know when to take what risks, and what the reward is that they're going to get. most of them don't overly fish for those high reward situations off of lucky, guess parries or whatever. And some players do well with it. But it all comes down to how your opponent deals with those situations, how fast they're able to adapt. If you always guess parry, are they going to just throw your guess parries? Are you going to react to that with throwing them yourself, or teching, or jumping? The interactions between how you deal with knockdown situations matters just as much as anything else. And positioning matters just as much. Knowing that, at this position, Ken can do crouching medium kick, or he can do sweep, or he can do stand roundhouse, right? But if you down parry and then block as an option select, you'll down parry this, you'll down parry this, or you'll block the stand roundhouse because it takes a lot longer than the other moves to come out. There's a lot of knowledge gap between knowing where your opponent stands, what can hit you, and the frame data behind those things. And until you know all of that information, parrying at very specific points is just going to hurt you more than it's going to help. Unless the players that you're playing against don't know how to properly vary their knockdowns. They don't know how to use movement. They don't know how to use jumps. They don't know how to use a lot of things. Especially when thinking about parry, you have to understand the type of player that you're playing against and the actual risk behind your decision. So, delaying your specials inside of normals is very common. And the concept is simple. You do a normal move, like Ken's standing heavy punch, and then you buffer DP. Or you buffer super. So if they block or are hit, nothing happens. But if you parry, the super comes out, or the special comes out. So this is very useful for characters like Ken. And the reason for that is because he has highs and lows that both go into specials. So if I parry this high, or I parry the low, a DP will follow. But if you get hit or you block, nothing happens. So it's very, very strong for specific characters, and it's usually higher tier characters. Or characters with invincible normals, or specials I should say, like Ken. Now, how this actually works is you're using the parry as a way to extend the cancel window for a normal. Because it uses the earlier portion of the frames that are actually being parried. And then you're canceling those. So, while it's strongest for characters like Ken, or strongest for characters like Goki, because he gets close standing heavy punch or crouching medium kick, or standing medium kick, or whatever, into Tatsu or DP. Ken gets DP, super. Necro gets far stand medium punch, super. Dudley gets standing heavy kick, or whatever, into super, backswing, blow, ducking. Ryu, same thing. Standing heavy punch, crouch medium kick, into Tatsu, Jodan, DP. Yang gets crouching medium kick, or close stand medium punch, or whatever, into Rekka or EX Rekka. There's a lot of different ways that you can use this to your advantage. And it's something that at a high level gets used quite a bit. Every character has something that they can do this with. Whether it's successful or super useful for them is completely up to the player. So the concept's pretty simple. You use a button, usually lows, with all three buttons at once. If it's a crouching medium kick will still come out. So the way that this works is that if you do your normal that you want to do, plus your throw, if your opponent throws you on the first frame of your startup of your normal, you'll tech it. Otherwise, they'll throw you out of your normal. So if they delay their throw a lot, and they catch you on the startup of your normal, you're screwed. So you have to have some balls if you want to do this as not a delayed option. Normally this is done by blocking for a second and then doing it. So Ken can do this as a way to get confirms off of crouching medium punch. So this can be done off of highs, however, but it needs to be done as a plink. As you can see here, you can do standing medium punch into light punch and then light kick plink, and this will tech. So we'll go over the crouching one first. As you can see, I hit him out of his chance of doing standing medium punch, and then I can tech. I mess up the first time and I did it at the wrong timing, and he was able to throw the startup of my standing or crouching medium punch. So he gets his throw, and then he gets delayed target combo, like he's trying to do anti-guard jump. So standing moves are a little bit different. As you can see here, I was able to get the tech, and I was also able to get the stand medium punch into fierce punch. So how this is done is pretty simple. You do the two normals that you want to do in succession, and then you do the third normal. Or standing medium kick, light punch, light kick, whatever it is. As long as light punch, light kick are pressed after the starting frames have begun for your normal, you're fine. This is a delayed Kara, basically. So it helps you deal with multiple options as well. This is another option select, just like guard jump. Except this one covers delayed attacks and throws for the characters that are capable of doing it. So it's very strong for characters like Ken. Or it's very strong for characters like Twins with their standing medium punches. Specifically, again, you want a normal that can be done either standing or crouching that's around 5 or 6 frames active. And that's it. It's pretty simple. It's just hard to master. So SGGK is something that players don't really understand, and the ones that do know that it even exists try to abuse it because of, its functionality and how many options they feel it actually covers. Now, that's a little bit of a misconception that I'll go over in a little bit. But SGGK's usage is essentially using any move that can be Kara canceled into a throw. Chun-Li has her close standing roundhouse, but Yun has close standing medium punch. Now, although, close standing medium punch isn't technically moving you anywhere, it's still technically a Kara cancel. So even though moves would move you forward or backward or not at all, as long as these particular normal can be Kara canceled, it can be used as an SGGK. So the goal here is to, if your opponent does not do anything, you get your throw. If your opponent ends up parrying, Yun would get close standing medium punch. And if they, just block, they get thrown. And if they try to throw you, you would get a tech. So SGGK is really funky, right? Now, it covers throw tech. However, I just teched her throw. So based on timing, you're either going to end up where she is now, or you're going to end up right here. And if you end up getting your throw teched, it's a lot worse for you because your opponent has more room to, actually deal with being cornered, get out of the situation. But if they block, they get thrown. And obviously, if they try to crouch check, they lose. But this loses specifically to guard jump. And it also loses to a normal attack on wake up in the opposite direction of the parry. So one of the major issues for SGGK is timing. and it requires perfect execution. Because if you don't have perfect execution, you get thrown. Or you get hit. And what do I mean by this? Well, SGGK functions by covering partially the timing at which you can be hit, but they are still technically not throwable, and then a couple frames after that. If you want. However, you can cut your parry timing short, and then essentially meaty throw them, where you throw them the frame after they are no longer invulnerable to throws. And getting this consistently on every character, regardless of quick rise or not, is extremely difficult. And also, not every character has all of their moves that are strong in this situation as high-low parryable. Like I already showed, twins can do close standing medium punch, right? But what happens if you take a character like Alex, right? This extra timing that you can get if your opponent isn't perfect with them means that certain normals may or may not work, right? Yun's close standing heavy punch is really not something that should be used in this manner, right? Because the actual frame data for this is that it's 7 frames. It's active on frame 7. But it hits Chun. So you get more leniency on this depending on how proficient your opponent is at actually doing the perfect timing. And because of how parry functions, you can cut the timing by doing your Kara throw too early, and you can cut the timing by pressing another direction by accident. So there's a lot of room for error here. So getting your execution down to where this is perfect is very difficult, right? If I were to do this frame 1, where my down jab comes out immediately, then, you know, Chun-Li gets her close standing roundhouse. But because there is timing variance, she gets thrown. And she can also get hit by down jab if it's not perfect. And if Alex does a late crouch tech, you know, it technically trades with it, but in my opinion this is beating it as well because of the spacing differential. So if you're doing normals that are high, you know, stand jab is something that will work. Now as you can see here, Alex got thrown, which means that stand jab actually came out of frame late. Because depending on how you cancel your Kara move, whether it's an early Kara cancel or a late Kara cancel, because some moves have multiple frames at which they can be Kara'd, changes the outcome. So the later that you cancel Chun-Li's close standing roundhouse, the more timing that she has to do her actual close standing roundhouse. So adding that extra time as well into how far along into your move you're actually carrying it makes it also more susceptible to normals when you're getting it. Like Alex's close standing forward. And this shouldn't work, but crouching medium kick works. Because it's adding so many extra frames to the situation that Alex can actually wake up and press a button. So, unless your execution is perfect, or close enough to perfect in all situations, using this as a crutch play doesn't really make sense. However, there are characters in the game that can use this in multiple directions, which makes it a little bit harder to deal with. Here's an example from Yun, using close standing medium punch, where you do forward parry and then medium punch throw. Here's another example from Yun, where he's able to do down parry into standing medium punch plus throw to get the close standing medium punch, which allows him to hit confirm like this. So this means characters like Twins and Ken can buffer their target combo with medium punch, fierce punch into their SGGKs, which makes it pretty strong. However, because of the variance as far as timing goes, it's probably not worth doing. So there's also command throws. As you can see here, Yun gets close standing medium kick. How this is done is by doing forward, down, back, medium kick plus throw. Now if he gets, you know, the high parry as well, if you time it a little bit earlier, or later, I should say, the high parry will come out, and you'll get the SGGK as well. And if you time this correctly, it can also deal with your opponent trying to do late normals on get up. And this works for, you know, Alex with close standing medium punch, Yang with close standing medium kick for their command throw. I'm not sure exactly what would be for Makoto. You might have to do forward, down, back, light kick into like light kick kara throw for normal throw, because the command throw should supersede it, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to test. But command throws can be used for this, and they are useful. So let's showcase SGGK on defense. As you can see here, I did down, heavy kick plus light punch, light kick, and I get the throw tech. So on defense, you kind of have to do this as an instantaneous thing, because if you delay too much after your down parry, you're not going to actually get your stand roundhouse. So let's assume you get knocked down and you're at this range. You know, a lot of characters with their kara throws are actually going to be able to get to Ken. Now, specific characters like Chun-Li with how far hers is, even if Ken tries to do a delayed normal, as you can see here, the kara throw actually grabbed his crouching medium punch as it started to come out. So this is where Ken can use the down medium punch plus throw to avoid, you know, the throw itself and tech it. But, you know, that's the highest level of yomi that exists, really. So we have to showcase what TDK is before we even talk about why air-to-air resets are so strong in the corner. What TDK is it's a term that was created in Japan for a situation where you are helpless. You cannot do anything other than block or parry. So the best way to showcase this is with Urien. As you can see here, I tried to super. Didn't work. A little bit sloppy on the execution, still didn't work. Well, what happens if I try to DP? Nope, no dice. EX DP? Nope. You get the idea. Even though these moves are invulnerable, including Ken's super and his DPs, he gets hit. And why is this? It's because after you're coming down from a reset, when your opponent lands before you, if you do anything other than parry, it loses to your opponent's choice because of this situation called TDK. Now, there are a couple situations inside of this where it doesn't work. Like, if Yun does target combo in the air, there's no TDK. But if Yun does jumping heavy kick in the air, then there is TDK. So there's a couple major ways that you deal with guard jump. You either hit them in their pre-jump frames, you hit them out of the air when they're starting to jump, or if you know they're going to guard jump, you can hard punish them for it. Well, what happens if they parry? Good question. Well, they can do jump back, parry, and then button. But if they want to do it at this timing, or if they want to do it at a later timing, they can only parry at one time of their jump. They have the option to parry early and then super late because of the time that it takes for parry to reset, or they can parry at one timing alone, and that's around where Ken's head is, or where the portrait is. Now, if you jump with them and hit them, no matter how late you hit them, you always land before them. So you will always get TDK as long as the air normal that you're using causes TDK. Not every air normal does. Not every air target combo does, etc., etc. It's very situational, so you have to find out from character to character what yours is. So this is where mind games begin as well. Is they have to guess, is he going to do a delayed attack? Okay, I'm committing to the guard jump because I think he's going to throw. Okay, cool. When do I parry? Do I parry early? Do I parry in the middle? Do I parry late? What is he going to do? So, you can hit them on the way up. You can hit them on the way down. Right as they're going to be doing their normal usually. Or, you can jump and parry their normal. Which, the higher that they do them, the easier that is. So you can jump parry and then press a button. And beat them out of whatever choice that they're going to be doing. Now I don't have the recording to be at the correct timing, so you'll just have to use that as an example. But if you jump parry, because you can jump parry early, as long as they're not doing it at the apex of their jump, then it doesn't matter. But for characters that have air target combos like twins, they can deal with it a bit easier. However, target combos like this don't cause TDK. So Ken is free to DP. So normally after a TDK situation, there's three options that you have. There's throw, because they can only parry or block. There's a low, and there's a high. And then obviously, you can just do nothing and block, considering they might DP, thinking that it's a reset. But after resets, it's a mind game. Am I going to press a button? Which direction am I pressing that button, either high or low? Is it blockable high or low? This is why after air-to-air resets, a lot of times Dudleys will go for forward roundhouse, or Kens might go for back medium kick, you know, or twins might go for forward medium kick or whatever, because it's relatively safe. It can be parried, obviously, but it is an option. So the mind games that come from this exact situation only come from if they start to respect your throws and try to get out of them with things outside of pressing buttons. So as things progress, you'll start to see that guard jump really isn't as strong as you think it might be. That 66% chance that you originally thought has to deal with a whole lot of other shenanigans. So, movement and positioning. If you are out of throw range from your opponent, throw no longer is an option for them, unless they plan on teching a Kara throw or something, right? So, you substantially limit your opponent's options just by being at specific ranges. And moving in and out of these ranges, just like in footsies, matters a lot. So simply by being out of these ranges, you can force them to defend more honestly. Or, depending on the type of player they are, they can completely devolve into nothing more than pure guessing. So, this means that characters with longer range Okizemes have an advantage, right? Or a substantial advantage. Because their reach allows them to do things that others cannot. So, if we go into the Chun-Li situation where she throws you, then she walks back a step, she's out of throw range, but she's in Kara throw range. She's in back fierce range. She's in crouching medium kick range. Both of those are confirmable into supers. They're also only parryable in one direction, either high or low respectively. They can function as meaties, or they can function as anti-guard jump. Doesn't matter. She has everything while moving backwards. And your options become limited to either block, jump the hell out of there, or guess a tech. You can parry if you want to take the risk, but usually the risk isn't worth the reward if she has super. Unless you're in your opponent's head. Now, being in range of throws encourages them to possibly use throws, right? Or option selects, or parry throw, or whatever. But as soon as you're one step out, or even just do standing roundhouse and you're out of range, they can't do anything but you can. without committing to something, right? So just like in neutral, where you're walking in and out of range to, be able to hit your opponent, you can manipulate what your opponent thinks you can and cannot hit them with, where a single step forward will allow a crouching medium kick from Shun. Right? Single step forward will hit them with this, if they're neutral jumping or standing still, or prevent them from jumping forward. Same thing with this. However, the further you are away, you give away that only certain buttons will hit. So there are option selects against some characters, which will allow you to cover multiple choices at these ranges and parry multiple things. And it makes specific ranges bad and other ranges good. So if you're in a range where you're just out of throw range and you can take one step forward and throw them, it's a good range, because you're still in range for all sorts of other things. So characters with faster walk speeds can much more heavily abuse their opponents, because they can walk in and out of range of choices, and they can use their walk to set up specific things, whether it be anti-guard jump normals, or meaties, or whatever it may be. They can reposition out of throw range, and other characters, they're guaranteed out of throw range just by doing their knockdown, like Yun's dash punch or Yang's slashes. They have to walk forward into your throw range for throw to even be an option. So this is why the whole idea of the shimmy exists, right? Where you walk in and walk out of range. Your goal is to be out of range of one thing, and then in range for the thing that they don't think you're able to do. It's pretty simple, right? Even just slightly delaying your timing allows you to do anti-guard jump stuff. And then you can also reverse this, where you walk forward into your opponent, and then you walk back at the last second to get out of throw range, to promote throws. Or promote them to press a button, so as you walk back and you down parry. Because highs as you're walking back usually aren't as strong. And this walking back, or walking forward and then walking back into range, is better for characters with good Kara throws, because it increases their choices and limits their opponent's defensive options. And you make them want to throw tech. And then when they throw you, they end up getting hit after the fact. Whiff punish, whatever. So movement plays the biggest part in mixing your opponent up. Sure, playing rock, paper, scissors is cool, but why not take away options and make it more in your favor? So jumping can limit your opponent's options just as heavily as anything else. So this is how Yun would normally end a Ganejin combo against a lot of the cast. And specifically against Chun-Li, it's almost a death sentence for her, because Yun has a lot of options. He has, early jump roundhouse. He has early jump medium kick. He has early jump heavy punch, or heavy kick at specific timings meant to make them block. Force proximity guard and then command throw. They can do late heavy kick or medium kick as safe jumps. They can do late jumping heavy punch as a safe jump as well. And depending on the situation, you can do neutral jump target combo. Now, depending on the situation, you can do neutral jump light kick dive kick. Or you can cross up, so you have left right. If your opponent likes to press buttons, You know, you have the ability to empty jump parry. And then come down, parry into this. Or if they do back fierce into like lightning legs or whatever, you can come down, parry, and do this, because light punch is 2 frames and it beats the lightning leg startup. You know, you have empty jump throw, or empty jump tempo tension. You know, you knock your opponent down, they have to guess what you're going to do. And they have to force, if they're reacting to what you're doing, higher in the sky or lower. They can't focus on everything at the same time. So Chen has to decide if it's going to hit early, mid, late, left, right, no attack at all, whiff dive kick, proximity guard. There's a lot that she has to worry about. Right? So there are other characters that do have this, you know, sort of ability. And it all depends on, you know, your opponent's quick rise timing and all that sort of stuff, right? Alex is out of range for a lot of things after a throw. You know, he's out of range for a lot of things after EX, whatever. But, you know, he can do early jump heavy punch as a jump forward into super, right? He can do late jump heavy punch into this. He can do whiff medium punch as a Genki bomb. He can bait you to want to, you know, counter that and just do whiff button into super. There's a lot of things that other characters have in the air that you have to worry about after specific sort of knockdowns. And another prominent choice is Goki or Akuma, where depending on the get-up speed of your opponent after Tatsu or other sort of knockdowns, you get a guaranteed meaty air fireball. Look at how low that hit him. There's nothing that he can do other than block it or parry. And yes, air fireballs are low blockable, but if he blocks this, you know, you're still in range for throw. You're in range for walk forward, crouching, light kick, walk forward, stand, medium kick. You know, demon flip mix-ups. You know, all that jazz. And if they parry this, there's a lot of times where they'll parry it, or they'll do this as a bait. Where they'll, you know, end up getting you to parry it so that they can go low, or so that they can force you to try to throw, and hit you with overhead. You know, or, God forbid, you know, they use this as a way to do, you know, Parademon. They don't even have to hit you with it. You know, after specific knockdowns, either DP or Tatsu, you know, they have different heights at which they're going to knock you down. And this is why different types of DPs also give you different types of knockdowns. You know, super jump gives you different types of fireballs. And they have to guess if you're even going to fireball at all. You know, you can do jump forward heavy kick, right? Or you can do jump forward dive kick. And that's a guaranteed combo. You get the idea. He has a lot of different choices that he can make just from the air alone to force you to stay where you are. And his entire goal is just to keep you cornered so that he can impose his will. Whether it's to get more Tatsus or to go for, you know, demon flip setups or whatever it is. His goal is to keep you there. And Goki gets most of his damage by keeping you in the corner. And he can even combo off of these, right? At specific distances. So if you know that your opponent is going to be in a situation where they're trying to parry, you can do combo timing in this. And then they're forced to basically get hit with an unblockable. And that's why parrying air fireballs is usually bad. Unless you know the distance that they're at, or you don't trust that they're going to go for quote-unquote semi-unblockables. So a lot of characters can use jumps to their advantage after knockdowns. And, you know, it's not just limited to the characters that I've shown. But there are characters that can make better use of them than others, and off of different types of knockdowns than others. And they're also better in specific matchups, based on how your opponent can react to your jumps. You know, jumping at Goki, you may just get DP'd, or you may get Tatsu. Or he may just say bye, and, you know, try to get out of the corner. So, understanding that jumps have their own place is just as important as being able to, you know, do your shimmies, do your reverse shimmies where you're walking forward first. You know, it's just as important as being able to position properly off of a knockdown. You know, you can position out of throw range and still be in carry throw range, or just in a range where you can do walk forward, crouching, light kick, with barely walking forward. You know, depending on your character, everything changes. Variation is of the utmost importance, just like everything in Third Strike.